We're
What's going
live.
on, everyone?
What's
How are we?
happening?
How are we doing today?
Well, I know I'm doing good. I don't know how these guys are doing. We got
I'm
William and
doing.
Harry.
I'm doing all right. I was a little sleepy today.
Yeah.
The weather. It's rainy. It's been raining for like a week. Had a
Yep.
little bit of dryness here and there, but for the most part, it's been rainy. So went out to dinner last night. A little crab feed thing here in Napa. Came home, watched TV. Stayed up too late. Little sleepy today. Will
Yep.
Carey, CPM, Therapeutic
Therapeutic,
Edge, got kind of the
CPM.
usual suspects joining in. Yeah.
Sweet. So we got some fun stuff to talk about today. We got a fun topic, I think.
I think so too. But first off, I want to say I am not buying any knives during this live stream. Last time, 2 weeks ago, I ended up buying 1.5 knives. I kind of committed to buying one I already had, the Tim Galen. And then I did buy the Frank Fisher Fury from NAF. So yeah, today I'm not buying any knives in this live stream. Okay. Thank you. If you have a knife to sell me, no, not today. And no, I didn't buy any watch. Will Carey asks if I bought any watches since last week. No, I didn't. And I'm not buying a watch today either, but I did sell one this week. So there is that. But that just kind of helps me pay for the 2 knives I bought last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, we have a topic to talk about today that I'm kind of excited about because it's been something I've been thinking about for a little while. Not specifically, but because one of my other friends in a watch group, Levi, kind of asked me some questions because he's putting together a bag for his car. And so it got me thinking about doing a video or a couple of videos on, hey, what's the stuff that I carry in my car or I should carry in my car, because we'll talk about what I carry in a minute. And then I talked to Alex. Him and I jumped on the phone last week. He's like, dude, that's a great idea. I got 4 million options for you and I can help you and we'll get it taken care of. So I'm like, oh boy.
Yep.
So fast forward to today, we wanted to get your guys' opinions and find out what, if anything, you carry in your car. And we're talking about like a car bailout bag, a car bug out bag, a get you home bag. You know, there's a lot of different terms. And I want it to be like, in my mind, it's kind of a realistic thing. It's not my broken down AR with 400 rounds of 223. Like, it's not that type of a bag. That's a different topic. But the normal stuff, and it's going to vary by location, right? Alex lives in Southern California. I live in Northern California. So in my mind, it's kind of a bag or a box or, you know, however you hold it, of stuff that if I'm driving from Northern California to Southern California and something bad happens, breakdown, you know, whatever, what's the normal stuff the average person should have or might want to have? What do you think about that, Alex?
I think that's good, you know, overall.
Oh, geez, Tony. What did I say at the beginning? I'm not buying anything, but you mentioned that. And I actually have that sitting right here on my desk that I have not done the video on yet because Mr. Alex is sending me his, I don't want to say production version.
It's a
because they're
mid-tech.
customs, but it's like this mid-tech version. So this is the prototype. Alex is sending me what it turned out to be. That makes sense, right? Because the prototypes oftentimes change before they mass produce or even slowly produce, if you will, right? So,
Right.
I
mean, you know, like I think the mid-tech version to that are pretty different, but that one's more like handmade versus the mid-tech. It's hand finished too, but I think it was probably more like water jet cut blades and such and so on and so forth. So
Yeah,
I think it'll be a good comparison.
it's going to be a great comparison, and this is truly, truly handmade. It's the first knife Ed ever made. Like, not just the first one of this mod, it's the first knife he ever made after his apprenticeship that he thought was worthy enough to sell or to promote or anything. So there's a lot of history to this. And when this belongs to Tony, Mossy Man Tony here in the chat. And when he's bored of it, it'll probably end up back here because that's just how we go. But let's stop talking about that and talk about, I see some comments here. So Therapeutic Edge, here's what he thinks he has in his car. Extra meds. That's a great one because that was like one of the things on my list because I have a list going of what I think you need. And if you're on any medication, you take blood pressure medicine, for instance, you should have some of that in your car in case you need. Flashlight, contact lenses. That's a good one. Water, set of clothes, blanket, protein bars, and a battery pack. Those are great ones.
So I think the first thing that's most important when you start out talking survival stuff is go into the first thing you got. The biggest thing you can do is educate yourself. It's going to be the knowledge, right? Because the more knowledge you have, the less tools you need, really. And when you start acquiring knowledge of different uses for a single tool, for example, then all of a sudden you can make something very small, compact, and it'll get you around. I know I mentioned like Mylar blankets. I mentioned a couple methods of fire starting, just in case. And one of those methods would be a lighter, by the way. It wouldn't just have to be some glorious, caveman way of rubbing two sticks. Like, I would keep it simple, a weatherproof lighter with, some sort of like lighter fluid or kerosene of some sort, right?
That's a great comment, Nev.
Ideal battery packs to jumpstart the car. Yeah, they're very small now. They're not like back in the day where you used to need this
super
massive
tiny
thing.
We have them
get
in
them
the
very
race
inexpensive.
cars.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's that, and then obviously you want to have something to snack on. So you can go the survival route and get, either a military grade MREs, which is going to plug your butthole up, or you can get like, they make high protein calorie bars that you can stock up on. Like one bar is like 1,300 calories. It's like eating Crisco, Then, you got to think about shelter, right? So as in like some cases, the smaller the space you have, the smaller amount of space you need to warm your body. Therefore, a small one-person tent, if you travel around solo a lot, would be a great idea. You don't need to get a big pitch tent that can like house like 3 or 4 people in there. It's nice to have, but it's not practical to stay warm. And there's a lot of these little details that people don't realize make a big difference in your kit. I have tons of this lightweight stuff to kind of like, for different situations. So the first thing you got to really think about is, where do you live and where are you going to find yourself most often on your way home, right? Like for me, it's going to be either urban environment, it's going to be a slight mixture of woodland and mostly desert. Like that's what Los Angeles is. So those are the type of things I need to know. I need to know how to find water, how to purify it, how to hydrate it, and how to stay warm because the desert gets really, really cold at night. Those sorts of things, right? Whereas if you live in warmer climates, that may not be a thing. So the mindset, I think, is the first preparation to the whole thing.
No, that's great. Great points. Yeah, I think we need to be smart about it and gain some knowledge, experience on it, because it's more than just the tools, right? If you don't know how to use it, then it's not going to do you any good. And just because you saw some guy on YouTube say you need this, 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 and this, that's great. But you got to make sure you know how to use them so that you can be efficient with them and carry less stuff, hopefully.
Right. Right.
Right. And location is important. What Alex and I are going to carry here in California is going to differ from the guys that live in like Buffalo, New York in the wintertime. They may want like a parka and some Arctic survival gear so that when they're stuck in the snow that's 10 feet tall in their car, they don't die. And
Yep.
I think also season dependent, right? In Buffalo, New
Yep.
York, you're going to carry certain stuff in the winter and then you're going to change it for the summertime, as we would probably
Absolutely.
here in California as well, potentially.
Right. And that's all about like preparedness, but the preparedness for real, not like preparedness like for destitution and nuclear fallout and all that. If that happens, you're screwed no matter what. So but preparedness for real life situations, that if your car breaks down 45 minutes on your way to your parents' house to go
Hmm.
visit, and you're somewhere, you're, like another 20 miles from the nearest exit, it's in the middle of the night, you're not going anywhere, you know, how to prepare to be in your car and be comfortable. You may not want to use any of the fuel, even if the car breaks down, or the electricity to use the heater and those things, because, the heater ain't going to work if the engine's not on in most cars
Right.
and things like that. And then, so how do you bundle up inside the car and just use it as a shelter to keep yourself warm?
Hmm.
Uh, and there's a lot of people, recently this winter, they were having on the news people dying in their cars,
There
freezing to
was.
death. It's a real thing.
It is. And Will has a comment here, the reflective triangles. And then up here, he also had some other things. So I think there's two, not really two schools of thought, but two things, right? You're going to have the things that stay in your car, like the jumper cables and the flares and the reflective triangles. Those are like always going to be there. But then if you need to leave your vehicle to go to the next exit that's 20 miles away, that's when you're going to grab your bag and go.
Mhm.
So I think it's kind of a multifaceted idea and topic. And the more I talk to Alex about it, at first in my mind, I thought it was pretty simple. Like I've seen some guys put together bags on YouTube, right? And then I'm talking to Alex, and Alex had all these questions and comments and stuff, and my brain kind of went, "Oh my god, there's a lot more to this that I wasn't thinking about." So again, kind of why we wanted to do this topic here, really, so that I could get some ideas from you guys as well as from Alex, so that I could then try to maybe put together some videos here or there to kind of, gather my thoughts together. And then Tony says there's a big difference between a get home bag and hit the fan bag. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm more talking about, like, initially in my mind anyway, is really just that small, simple stuff to get you home, get you to the next gas station, you know, like the kind of the basic stuff. Again, not your broken down AR, your 10-inch, Bowie knife and things like that. But again, I
Well,
love seeing all the
it's
comments and what people have already.
I see all this cool stuff, like Edgy American says tourniquet and Narcan in the vehicle. Those are great things actually. But Narcan's good for an overdose, and tourniquets are good for extreme disasters. And they're relatively compact too, like Israeli bandages are not that expensive to add to a kit, things like that. But when it really comes down to it, I think people need to, when you build a bag that's for your get home bag, right? And for me, get home means 50 miles. That's about what a get home round trip sort of situation. 50 miles, like a 2.5 day hike for those who aren't familiar with what that would be. And it's a good that's a good pace too. It's not like it just, if you're just diddle daddling, make it three and a
Right.
half days. But 50 miles, get home somehow, you got the basic rules of survival, which is going to be water, food, right? Shelter, and then some sort of heat. You're going to need that.
Yep.
So for me, smallest bag I can carry, the least amount of calories I'm wasting doing it, and the faster I get to wherever I go. And for me, I mean, we could start off, I guess, tool by tool, right? To make this kind of fun and not overbearing. So a knife. We'll start with a knife because that's easy, right? What kind of knife do you want on your person? If you're going to have it in your backpack, you're going to have one blade in there. What do you want?
For me, it's going to be a fixed blade.
Me too.
Because I'm going to need something like, so number one, I have a folding knife in my pocket. If I'm in the car, there's a folding knife in my pocket already. It may not be something I want to use. It may be a little fancy for trudging through the brush, but I think in your backpack or your duffel bag or whatever instrument you use to hold your gear, you're going to want a fixed blade because you're going to probably be in a dire situation or in a negative situation where you want the strongest things you can get.
Absolutely. So fixed blade, we both agree on that.
Yep.
I'm going to say that there is a lot of debate on what kind of blade to carry, right? And most survivalists prefer to have two blades, a big ass Bowie knife, something to chop with, and a small one to do smaller detail stuff like, to make like feather sticks to make a fire, things like that. I mean, you can do those with big knives too, but they're more intrusive. And if you're gonna even skin an animal, which most of us wouldn't, but maybe some of our viewers may, depending on which state you're in, right? Like,
of course,
using a big Bowie knife on a task like that is quite nerve-wracking, because if you poke the gut or the sack, it'll contaminate the meat and then you're done. So I say a good 4-inch blade to maybe 4.5 is where I kind of stand, would be if I only carried one knife. Be 4 to 4.5-inch blade fixed, which is kind of small actually.
Yeah, so FL1P carries a Benchmade Altitude, and honestly, I'm not even sure which one that is.
I'm not familiar with that one either.
I'm not familiar with that, but I'll look it up here in a second on the other screen. But he also made a really good comment. I think this is the one. I like to be able to depend on my gear and also have gear. Oh, that wasn't the one. Oh, this one right above it. FL1P, who I'm not actually familiar with, so thank you for joining. I don't recognize your name from previous shows. He doesn't like to carry things I can't use. That's a great point. So whatever you're going to carry, you need to know how to use. So if you're buying like a medical trauma kit, take a first aid class, watch some first aid video, like something, right? So that you know how to use, like edgy American. Jeez, Shane. He has tourniquets and stuff. Try it out. Put it on your arm. Put it on your leg. Make sure you know how to use these things, because it's great to have, but in an emergency situation, you don't want to be fumbling around to figure out how to use whatever it is that you have.
Totally agree on that.
Let me look up this Benchmade thing while you go ahead and see what that is.
Yeah, I mean, Flip Solo made some great points. I know a lot of survivalists like Cody Lundeen and stuff like that actually use relatively inexpensive stuff like Mora knives and things like that. I think a lot of the popular knives that you would pick out, especially if you want to not spend too much money. Contrary to
Oh.
like folding knives, you're using a lot of stainless. You kind of want like more of a carbon steel knife, in my opinion, when you have something that's going to be an outdoors knife. And some of the reason is, to be able to do a flint strike, you need carbon steel to create a spark. And carbon steel is really, really, really hard steel. So
Mm-hmm.
S90 is another good steel too, as well. That's going to be more of a survival type knife. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. So this is the altitude. I think now that I've seen it, I think I have done a video on this knife before.
You did do
Um,
one.
so guys, I do so many videos, I can't remember them all. Sorry. But yeah, that's a really good kind of a knife to have in your bag. This one I remember is super light. It's like a hunting, specifically, and it was, I don't remember how heavy it was, but it was super light, works really good in a backpack and things like that. So I
Does it
think
say
that's
how much it is?
no, this is on Amazon, so it just like was the first thing I pulled up. I
Yeah.
don't remember it being that expensive.
Yeah. I mean,
But it's Benchmade. It's a couple $100 because that's just how they are.
yeah, you see, when it comes to the fixed blade world, you can get something much nicer for just a little bit more than a couple $100. And then,
Yeah.
again, I would say carbon steel and uncoated blade, because coated blades are kind of,
Yeah, he says it
eh,
was about $200 for that one.
yeah, I figured with S90V, it's got that
Thanks,
weird
Will.
little pivot medallion.
Yeah, I did do a video on it, and it was Will's.
Yeah, I remember you doing a video on it. I thought what one little attribute I thought was interesting about it is where they put the jimping on the very, very front of the blade, so you could put your thumb all the way to the front, have a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of traction. It's kind of neat little thing.
Yeah, Shane makes a great point here. This is kind of my point. Is a trained individual with very little gear will outlast an untrained individual with all the gear.
That's why
So,
the first thing I said is knowledge. That
yep.
is exactly why I said that. But you got to kind of tailor it to like for your situations, because you can watch somebody survive in Panama and.
Oh, NAF. I'm going to throw it up here. NAF says get yourself a NAF fixed blade to put in your car. Because NAF has now switched from knife YouTube reviewer guy to knife maker guy.
Yeah,
So,
but wait. Before he can have any free advertising or,
what do
we
I
want
get out
some,
of it?
yeah, we want some proceeds or something. And plus, I haven't even seen a lot. I've seen you make like 2 knives, so I want to see like more of it before you get free advertisement here.
I
I want a
agree.
free sample too. Forget it.
Yeah, I need samples. All right, back to the
See,
topic.
Will agrees, right? The Mora knives,
Yes.
excellent little knife, and it costs like, for a fancy 1095 carbon steel one, it was like $40.
Mora Kiev would be his
Yeah,
choice for a vehicle knife.
yeah, those are cool. I like those.
He's trying to change his mind now to NAF fixie. No, I don't think so.
And then they have like Scandi grinds. Scandi
Oh
grinds
boy,
are good for outdoor stuff.
NAF's going to be selling at CCKS. What?
Oh yeah,
Oh boy, here we go. That
I'll bring
escalated quickly, my friend.
I'll bring my wallet, but not only for your booth.
Yeah, I am. So talking about CCKS, get off track a little bit. I have booked a room. I have bought my tickets. I need to book the flight next week. I'm going to book that like on Tuesday. I think it's supposed to be the cheapest time to buy plane tickets, whatever. So I am going to buy the plane tickets. So I will be there Saturday morning and leaving Sunday afternoon. So if you are around, I know I'm going to hook up with Alex and Tristan, another friend of mine. We're going to try to go to dinner. I'm going to keep that on the down low because I don't want a whole big group. But I will be at the show on Saturday. So, and maybe Sunday morning. I don't know. I'm not sure what time my flight is going home, but If you're around and you see me, which you probably won't because nobody ever sees me at these shows, but I'll be there. Alex, you're going to try to get Saturday off, right?
I'm
That's still your
trying.
plan?
I'm already working on it. I already talked to management about that.
Perfect, because I need my Uber driver to pick me up at the airport at like 8:05.
Oh, perfect, because they run 24 hours a day, so you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, that's you. That's
Oh,
my personal Uber driver.
whoops.
And I'm bringing my lovely better half also. So she told me not to buy her a ticket to the show though, because she has no desire to go. She's been there and done that for 5 minutes last time, so I think she's good.
Sweet.
But she's down for dinner.
Sweet.
And Tristan's going to bring a couple of beauties to look at. So
Very
just
nice.
for you, Alex.
Very nice.
Got that all situated. And then he asked me to bring a couple of things. I will bring a few knives.
I have a feeling one's a non-flipper.
He might be bringing a non-flipper because I know that's your thing and he has one. So I've never handled one, so I do want to check one out. But so yeah, he is going to bring a non-flipper, and he's going to bring the king also. Yeah, no, I'm not driving. Sorry, Naf. My girlfriend does not want to drive down and then turn around and drive back the next day. That's too much for her. I got to be there for like 3 days to drive down for her. Yeah, so I'm just going to fly. It's about the same amount of time. By the time I go to the airport, I hang out there, fly for an hour, like whatever. But yeah, no, because your Focus is nicer than mine, so I don't want to bring mine and get laughed at. So yeah. All right. So
we've established a knife.
We've established a knife, a good fixed blade, 4-ish inches, right? And I'm going to take some notes here, and I'm going to go back through later and look at the comments so that I can, maybe put together a video on the topic. Maybe not. We'll see.
Another thing I think that's important is multiple ways of starting a fire. I mentioned a Bic lighter would be a great one because they're very, very, very cheap and very, very, very durable. I mean, you can throw those things around, throw them in the water. When they dry up, they work again.
Michael Morgan, welcome.
I like things that you can have multiple use out of. You can combine a small amount of tools and have quite the tool bag when it comes down to it. So with fire starting, something as simple as having a magnifying glass is a great thing to do because that is something very compact and a very easy way to start a fire during the day. If you're at night, then it's going to be resorting to either being a caveman and rubbing 2 sticks, which is not as easy as it looks on TV. I can tell you that. Or you can get a fire rod, which is the most common thing that most campers do. And that's basically like a little, large ferro rod that you scrape off and you basically sparks off of it. You need a 90-degree angle spine knife to really do it with a knife. And if you have coating on a knife, it makes it kind of a problem to do that. So that is one reason why, going back to the knife, I don't like coated knives because I like to use ferro rods. So, for example, so that's another way of starting fires. They have a company called Exotech that makes fantastic, like butane style little lighters that light for a very, very long time. You fill them up with fluid, you cap them off. They're watertight with rubber O-rings so they don't rust on the inside. They work really great for outdoor stuff. They usually have keychains so you can just strap them anywhere. Very easy way to do it. Waterproof matches. I mean, you name it. There is so many different ways to start a fire. But if you're going to need it, you're also going to know where you're weak at. And in order to do that, you should practice trying to make a fire. Because the first time you do it, you realize, it's like, wait a minute, this is not quite as easy, right? And then you realize if you start following all the basic rules, like when you gather your wood and you break them down from tiny little pieces to like bigger and bigger as you go down, and you give yourself plenty of oxygen and ventilation, the fire works like crazy. But if you miss one step, it just doesn't work at all. So, practice, again, back to knowledge. But fire starting, if you suck at the building of like different layers and such, you can get like really like um, these cotton balls that you can break apart and turn into like tinder,
Mm-hmm.
that are very flammable, and that'll make it a lot easier to build a fire with larger pieces of wood, for example, and things like that. So
Yeah,
I
and I
think
think that's some
fire
of this
is a
like
good thing.
this rope stuff that NAF is talking about. I don't remember the name either, but I have seen it. It's kind of like your
Oh yeah, I
compost
have
thing.
seen that.
So you can cut some
Yes.
little sections, it opens it up, and then you can, they're almost like guaranteed to light, and then you can throw the tinder and the kindling and all that stuff on top. But so yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's
it comes down to
in
knowledge
a
and
what do
practice
you
ahead of time.
but see, that's a good thing that he brought up too, because that is a paracord kit that he's talking about. So that's what I mean when I say you're combining
Mm-hmm.
more tools in a smaller space. So if you have this, then you can just pull that red thread out and you still have paracord that's got a bunch of threads in it and still very strong and capable. But you got your fire starter hidden in there too. So now you just like minimize your kit. But I still think you should always have two or more ways to start a fire. And I think the
I agree.
easiest, most primitive ways to do it is the best way. Like, I think magnifying glass is a great way. I think a big lighter is great to have. And I think those exotac lighters are fantastic. I have a bunch of them that look like little pill form or pill
Mm-hmm.
carrier type things, and but yeah, fire.
Yeah, Shane says he's got an old pill bottle stuffed with dryer lint, one of my favorite things to collect.
Yep,
Saturated
that
with
works.
petroleum jelly. That's going to work every time, which is great.
Yep,
Tony says that an exotac fire starter zipper pull, which is kind of that,
yep,
again, you take apart the zipper pull, which is the paracord stuff, and away you go.
yep.
And Michael
Same
Morgan
brand.
with the F91W going classic old school.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I have one of those in
very
the other
nice.
room. It's in my watch
Yep, me
box,
too.
actually. That's very cool. They were like
I do have one
it
of
was on
those
sale
too.
on Amazon for like $3. How could I pass it up?
They are pretty cool. They're the terrorist of the Casio world.
They are the terrorist watch. Absolutely.
Yep.
I talked about that in my
Hmm.
video long ago. All right, so we've got a knife and we got fire. What's next?
Honestly, I think, and this is arguable because this one requires a lot more knowledge, but cordage. I think cordage is very, very important. And cordage is anything that is string, fishing wire, those sorts of things, because you can make traps for animals with that. You can also, when you're making a makeshift shelter out of whatever, so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times you're going to need cordage to tie things up in a certain manner so the wind doesn't take it away. I mean, cordage is endless use of stuff. And there's people out there, and you can watch them on TV. They do it all the time, that make cordage out of, like the tree bark and all kinds of natural
Yeah,
materials.
yeah.
And that is not my forte. So I like to have cordage, and therefore I will carry some. And I will carry probably like two different kinds because I like metal and fishing line because they're both very useful for all kinds of stuff. And the metal ones, if you clip them short and make little clips out of things to hold things in place, they're
Mm-hmm.
reusable. So that's another kind of cool thing with the metal ones. So I think cordage is a big, big thing, personally.
I agree. Will says 50 feet of bank line and 100 feet of paracord. I'm not sure what bank line is.
That works.
And then four ratchet straps. Ratchet straps is a good one, actually, because again, like cordage, you could put those together to hold up your tent. You could strap things down to make sure they don't blow away. Like that's actually a really good thing that I hadn't thought about.
But they're heavy.
But they do add some weight, but that might be something that you leave in your car.
In the
that
car.
you have in your car, not in your bag that you're going to go walk with, maybe.
Yes. So in the car, I agree. Those are like almost a must. I mean, there's so many uses for those things as well.
Steven says cutting tool, combustion container, cordage cover.
Okay.
Cutting tool, combustion container, and cordage cover. Okay.
I like that. Yeah, and you can get like the wax type of line and all kinds of different lines to do different things. I saw somebody put flashlight. That's a great one, especially now in the modern world where you can buy very inexpensive flashlights that can be solar powered or
Mhm.
yeah.
And I think a lot of us have a flashlight in our pocket, but that's great. But I think in the car you want another one and probably a bigger, brighter one. And something I was thinking about for the car is one of those headlamp ones, so that when you're changing the tire, you've got it. If you have to go hike, you're not holding a light. You can just throw that thing on your head and off you go. If you need to climb under your car and work on something, you just have it on your head. So I think that's a great way to go too. I think a flashlight is a must in your car, not just the one you have in your pocket. If you're like me and you have a flashlight in your pocket all the time.
Yep. Yeah, what Steve Wallace was referring to and William Carey even mentioned is the 5 C's, which is like one of the basics of survival that a lot of people mention. And it's true. It just depends on how deep you want to go. Like for me, you learn some stuff in the military. I want to say the best tool I ever learned in the military that's useful in the real world, which is not that many. But one of them was land navigation, right? Like getting to know your bearings and understanding a map and those sorts of things. Somebody earlier mentioned in the comments a compass. Compass is good.
And a map of the area that you travel. Floridian had mentioned a map of the areas that you typically travel, which I think is great because you may be in an area that has no cell service and you can't just pull up maps on your phone.
Right. But that stuff is only good if you know how to use it. If you do not understand it,
goes back to knowledge.
Yep. So don't go to like Big Five and stock up on like everything, like throwing all these things inside your cart. Learn one skill at a time and try out different little tools and figure out the one that works best for you. Because there's different types of compasses. For example, I'm a big fan of lensetic compasses because, that's what I learned on in the military. Those are great. And those have like a little aiming device where you can keep your bearings for a long distance and be very precise.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So I like those, but, they're not necessary. As a matter of fact, knowing your bearing from north to west to east to south, a lot of times can be, you can tell by the way the sun and the way it orients by the time of day and those sorts of things. So it's a good to be combined with all that stuff. Like a lot of times we're trying to figure out at dusk time how much time we got left to get to our destination, right? How much sunlight do I have left? So if you hold your hand out in front of you, for example, like the distance of your hand straight out in front of you, well, you usually give you an indication of between like 25 to 30 minutes, for example. So you can tell if you only have a half hour of sunlight left, or if you have an hour, or maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, you can kind of gauge. But a combination of all these things again is what you need to acquire with knowledge, and on how far you actually need to go, right? How far do you drive to work, or how far do you go when you're going to go out shooting to the range? Maybe that's a 40-mile drive and you got to go way out in the middle of nowhere. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe you prep yourself a little bit different. You have a couple extra gallons of water in the trunk of your car, those sorts of things, bigger battery, or shit, people even carry generators, so
Yeah, it's definitely, everything's kind of leading back to knowledge
mhm,
and trying all of the stuff that you have so that you know how to make a fire with the whatever tools you have in your car. And first aid stuff, you know how to use it, navigation a little bit. If don't just buy a compass if you're not going to learn how to use it.
right,
If you're going to
right.
learn how to use it, great. But if you're not going to learn how to use it, then just don't buy one and don't carry it, because if you don't know how to
Use a
use the
different
thing that's
way.
there, then you're dumb. Like, you just
Then
don't need it.
yeah, so then if that's not your thing, just admit defeat and buy a really like long sustaining GPS device and store that in your car instead. Just
Mhm.
spend a little bit more money. You don't have
Yeah.
to be Rambo. Like you can get high-tech shit and it's okay,
Oh yeah,
you
tech
know.
stuff is fine. Don't
Yep.
rely on your phone, because your phone might die. You need extra batteries, you need a charging cords and things like that. But cell, you may have no cell service, so you can't rely on that.
I agree. And then I think another tool that we should mention is it's going to be different for everybody depending where you live, but a sense of a way of purifying water, because even if the stuff goes down at the house, you're stuck here for a while, you got a little bit of toilet water still in the bowl that you can boil, you got this and that, but you got no running water, you're not going to the store, you need to figure out a way to drink water, and water that's not going to make you sick, because if you get sick you throw up, if you throw up you're throwing up the food, which is already precious in those type of situations
Hmm.
anyways. So for me, water purification is huge, and that's another thing that got very inexpensive and very techy with these like kind of like pass through filtration systems you can buy. There's
Right.
the straw, that filtrates water. And there's natural ways of doing it. As I was telling Dirk the other day, I'm like, if you really needed to purify water and you had none of these life straws or whatever else kind of tools, you can literally make a strainer type filter out of ash from a fire and some dirt and some rocks and your sock, and run water right through it, and you'll clean tons of particles out of that.
Right.
It's not going to taste good. It's going to taste like your foot and ash, and
Right. But hey.
but the chances of being sick have been like reduced maybe like 60 or 70% now.
Hmm.
So or like EDC is mentioning, a method to boil water, which is the preferred method.
Right.
If you boil it for 3 minutes, nice round boil, you're usually okay to drink it. Kills most stuff.
Which goes back to starting a fire, which then
Hmm.
goes also to having something to contain the water to boil it in, some sort of a container, an old soup can, something like that.
And it
Uh,
doesn't have to be huge. I mean, you can,
right.
they sell those things, even like something of the equivalent of a thermos or of a cup
Yep.
that's made of stainless steel can sit on a fire and be boiled over. And if you're using it for those methods, then you want to again go back to stuff without paint on it, if possible. And then you really want to watch the type of steels that you're using, because some of the inside of the coating on some is not as good as others. But
Hmm.
yep, plastic canteens are gross. I did a lot of those in the military. I used to drink water daily till I puked, and they used to do it to us all in a line, and it made them laugh very, very hard. And I laughed really hard when the guys next to me puked water, but I kind of laughed and gurgled and threw up water when it was my turn. So canteens are cool. There's good and bad to plastic or metal. You kind of got
Right.
to go do your own research on that one. But
For
I kind of
sure.
prefer metal, to be quite honest, because that at least you can still boil it.
Yeah, and Will chimes in with a head covering is something that everybody should keep on them, or at least close at hand. You lose a ton of heat from your head.
That's huge. That's
Absolutely true,
huge.
especially for us bald guys. In my car, there is a beanie in the side pocket at the door that's always there just in case. Whenever I travel, there's always a beanie in my suitcase just in case I get somewhere and it's chilly. Um, yeah, we haven't even gotten really to clothes and stuff yet, but yeah, that is something. Even just a baseball hat is better than nothing. A beanie
Mhm.
is obviously going to be a little warmer, but yes, you need to have something, even if it's like a scarf that you can wrap around, or schmog, like a big, Israeli bandage blanket type of thing. You can wrap that around your head and do that as well.
I would love to see you in one of those.
I'll send you some pictures. I have a couple of pictures back when COVID started, me and some
Yeah,
buddies, because I have some schmucks and I can tie them and use them. So I
I
have some
have some
pictures I'll
too.
send you after this feed.
Yeah, I,
You'll,
I
you'll,
like
you'll,
that.
you'll crack up.
So,
Total terrorist look, let me tell you.
and
Let's leave it
those
at
have,
that.
and those also have filtration uses and different things like that as well. Those are very
Uh-huh.
useful. They're a big part of a lot of people's kits. So, but I agree with Dirk. Um, Head coverings, one of them, all the places on your body where you think you're going to be most susceptible to heat loss. If you're the type of person that, has cold feet, bring extra socks. Put them in your pack for your gear because that's tailored to you. Or if
Yeah,
you're the type
Tony.
of
Sorry, Tony had made a comment way up above earlier on about bring extra socks, because if you're out hiking to like get to where you need to go
Mhm,
for a day or two, your feet might get sweaty. And
mhm,
that's no good if you're out hiking. You need dry feet. So
mhm.
switching your socks could literally be a lifesaver in these emergent situations.
Absolutely. If anybody's ever had trench feet like I've had, you'll
Yes.
understand what that means. Yeah, it's like the skin peels off your feet like cheese.
Hmm.
It's beautiful.
And I'm not the one that's advocating to be nuts and go crazy and have like, everything under the sun in the trunk of your car. But an extra pair of socks is not a bad thing. Or, a beanie and some gloves and a couple of things to make your life more comfortable. Even if you're not planning to go hiking out, if you're broken down in the middle of nowhere and it happens at night, you may just want to hunker down in your car overnight. Have a
And on
blanket, have a beanie, hunker down in your car. When the sun breaks, then you can now start to hike or walk out, flag somebody down, things like that. But so it's
so
really about being comfortable
now that you
for
mention hunkering down, Dirk, we should talk about how to stay warm, right?
we should.
Because that's important. We talked about a fire, but a lot of times, if let's just say in the scenario where you do have to leave your vehicle, or let's say if you don't have to leave your vehicle, Mylar blankets, guys, are those space blankets are unbelievable. Like I cannot explain to you how amazing they work.
And they're
It's
like this big. They're like
they're
they're like nothing.
super
It's
compact. So I would buy like 3 or 4 of those, and if you plan to, like, let's say your car breaks down, you wanna stay near the freeway to be found,
Mhm.
that sort of situation, then you could literally plant those all around your car, and your body heat itself would reflect probably plenty of body heat to keep you feeling a lot better otherwise. I mean, like, we're talking like maybe a 10-degree difference at least or more. I think I'm being generous with 10 degrees difference. I think it'll do a
Correct.
lot more than that. But make a huge difference. I mean, people have wrapped themselves up in these things, you know, like clothing, and that's what they're designed for. They work so well. Do not underestimate those blankets. They're phenomenal. And I should have brought it out. It's in the
What's
other
up,
room. But
Professor? Welcome.
what's up, Professor? But you can also get sleeping bags that are very compact. They squish down. I have one that like squishes down to like a little tiny ball size. You know, it just depends on like what you're carrying. And for me, in my situation, I'm only going to be stuck between work, on my way home, or on my way. Well, if I was on my way to work, I'd be going back home. You know, like those sorts
Right.
of scenarios. Like that's all I need. So a very small, I could probably get along with a fanny pack worth of stuff and be fine to do a one night overnighter, no problem.
And you'd be stylish at the same time with your fanny pack.
Yes,
They're coming back.
that's what
They're
everybody says, but
they're
they're
coming
not.
back.
Not to me, they're not. But you know, I don't know.
I might have one in the garage, but it
I'm
also
sure you
held
do.
my pistola. So
Yeah, well, that's very 80s as well.
it was back in the 90s
Yeah,
when I had that.
yeah. That's like a lethal weapon. Those sort of
Yes.
days.
Yes, that was the thing. So yeah, a wool blanket is perfect for in the car and things like that too. So
Wool
there's a lot
blankets
of
are amazing.
options.
If
I
you
have
guys
my
don't,
dad's Marine Corps wool blanket that he got when he was in the Marines back in the 40s, up in the closet in the linen closet over there. So
the
yeah, it's
difference
pretty cool.
between cotton and wool is like night and day. It's so important to understand that too. Big difference with wool. Wool is some very warm stuff, very dense. I love it.
For sure. And I think Edgy American said he has wool socks that he
Mhm.
carries for, like, he has gloves in the car, but he puts wool socks on his hands and they're much warmer than the gloves.
I actually carry wool socks in my kit. I like wool socks.
You don't have to spend a fortune. The blanket in my truck was discarded by my wife because of a stain. There's a lot of truth there, right? Like you don't have to spend a lot of money to acquire a few things to throw in your car.
Yep.
An old blanket that you're going to toss anyway because it's got a stain or it's got a little rip and you don't want to use it in your bed or your wife doesn't want to use it on the bed. Throw that in your car. When you buy a 6-pack of white socks, take one pair and just throw it in the car. Like a lot of it is pretty basic that you probably have at home already. You just need to assemble and put in the car.
There is another thing that I want to mention too. Very important. And this is very individualistic.
Okay.
In your kit, you should have your favorite candy in there. Something not perishable, obviously, or, that lasts a very long time, but some sort of candy or sweet or something, or rather for you to enjoy, or beef, whether it's beef jerky,
Right.
whatever it is, put something in there that is just designed to put a smile on your face, some sort of food nutrient, but not one to keep you sustained. You should have that, and you should have something to either chew on or nibble on, or sunflower seeds, whatever it may be, but you should have something extra to keep you occupied, so you don't, because people have the tendency to always eat their food in a situation way before they need to. And I learned this in the military too, because we did a couple simulated warfare exercises where they only gave us 1.5 MREs, and it was a 52-mile trek. And by the time we got to the end of that 52 miles, most people had already eaten most of their food on day
Right.
one, which was a crazy social experiment. Like, it was like, you've been trained, you know better, you know what you're not supposed to do that, but you're so hungry and desperate, you do the wrong thing anyways. that's going to end up making you feeling worse later. So having
I think that's
something
a good
like
point.
that, having
You
something like that is important.
you got to put a smile on your face, because when you're in this situation, mental stability is really important. And Edgy American says that he keeps a Jack Carr novel in his truck. Yeah, having a book or a magazine, even though you've read it
Almonds.
before.
I see somebody mentioned coffee. I mean, William Carey mentioned coffee. That's a huge one. That's a
Mm-hmm.
huge morale booster. I
Yes, and
think
that's
that's the
what you
best way to
need.
describe it.
Yeah, you need to keep your morale up because you're in a bad situation, and having a book, having coffee, having your favorite candy as a little sweet, as a fun thing is important. Or almonds. A lot of people are into the almonds. For me, it'd be peanut M&Ms. Gets me every freaking time. So,
Yeah, and stuff. There's a lot of stuff you could put in the bag that lasts for years. Like you
yeah,
don't have to worry about it. Like, oh, expiring next month. Like, think of that ahead
Aussie
and
Mike.
put that in your kit.
Hello.
Hey,
Thank you
what's
for
up, Mike?
joining in on your lunch break. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
But I think that's an important part of your survival kit, you know.
Agree.
So we got the kind of the shelter thing going. If you know you're doing a kit to be out of your car, then obviously put a little tent or something to roll up to make into a little shelter. It doesn't have to be fancy. There's
Right.
tons of how-tos to do that on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
But those single person tents are like $40. I mean, they're cheap. So why
Right.
would you have to resort to anything else, you know? But yeah, I think it's good to have both because you may want to stay in the car because that's always, I think, one of
Mm-hmm.
the survival instincts that most people forget is if you're somewhere and you're stuck there, think about where you're most likely to be found. Obviously, if you're on an interstate, it's better than going out to the middle of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to be like Pocahontas and getting your ass stuck somewhere and bitten by a rattlesnake. So, you
And
know,
again, that's a good point that goes back to knowledge. Don't leave your car to go over the mountain if you have no survival. Like, if you don't know what you're doing out in the mountains, well, then don't go out into the mountains.
yes,
Right. I mean, just because
yes,
civilization is on the other side of that hill or that rain, whatever, it might not be the smartest thing to go traipsing out that way and get yourself lost and in a worse situation.
wait till somebody finds you, if you're in a
Again,
spot
yeah,
that it could
it's
be that.
knowledge.
Yep.
Don't
So,
overextend yourself with your gear. Don't have a bunch of gear you don't know how to use. Don't go off wandering if you don't know where you are or how to navigate yourself. Things like that. I mean, got to be smart. Yeah,
yeah, there's a
do
lot
not
of
rush
great
to your
ones.
own death.
Yeah, a lot of that was one of the ones I was reading. There's a lot of great comments.
Chapstick is always
Chapstick.
great.
Yep, chapstick is another great one. I mean, build your kit, but it's something for, if and I'm sure some of our watchers may already have a kit, maybe.
It sounds like a lot of people do, which is great. So I love the comments. And anybody watching this after the fact, please put in the comments what your kits contain, because I think this is great. It's a community that we're trying to build, and we all can kind of feed off of each other with what you've got, what I've got, what Alex has, and things like that. So I think that's great.
The Twinkies and the
Twinkies,
Coca-Cola.
man. Like, the stuff has
Dude,
a half-life of like 127,000 years or something. So you're good.
Beard, I'm sure knows. He's a vet. He knows all about
Yep.
hydration and all that good stuff. That's why he's telling you guys to drink Coca-Cola.
Yep. And Will says extra batteries. Yeah, batteries for whatever you have. So, like, a flashlight, a lot of times it's good to have like these USB flashlights and stuff like that we carry on a daily basis. That's great. until it's not, and your car's dead, and you have no way to charge your light that you still need. But if you've got a mag light that takes AA or AAA or D cell batteries, well, then you can just change those because you have
Yep.
spares. And then have a cord for whatever charging thing you have, for whatever phone you have a cord in the car. You probably already do. But if you have a flashlight, have a cord for that too. If you have earbuds, you might want to have a cord for that because maybe you need that. Like, you got to have the stuff to maintain the equipment that you have.
Yep. I agree.
Spam.
Did I miss anything? Spam. Yeah, my wife loves spam.
Large battery backup power station in the car. Yes, we talked about that, which is great to have. Again, have the cords for your stuff and or your wife or girlfriend's if she's got a different phone or something. Have that with you too, because you never know. And then the battery packs, one that can jump your car is great.
And you need a little leaf to tie around your waist so that when you lose your clothes out there, you can be like Adam and Eve.
Exactly. And the beard comes in with, in all seriousness. All right, let's get serious here. His bug out kit has a full med kit, including lidocaine, splints, tourniquets, sutures, needles, SAM splints, ACE wraps, space blankets, paracord, and so on and so on and so on, which is great. And if you're going to go that route, make sure you know how to use all of that stuff that you have. I'm all for it. But don't just go buy some trauma kit on Amazon. Too. Make sure you're getting quality gear especially in the medical stuff. Like I've watched a lot of this stuff, and some of the stuff you maybe buy on Amazon, not to say it, but know what you're buying and don't buy like cheap medical stuff because you're using that in like a tourniquet. That's like emergency, like that's life and death. You don't want the cheap knockoff, brand. You want something quality and then use it ahead of time so that you know how to use it. Get some training, absolutely. Take a first aid trauma kit, trauma class, something like that so that you know what you're doing.
And as you can see,
I did not know that.
Yes. He's very trained in that. So
perfect. Then you should carry all of that.
Tools. He's got the right tools, the right man for the job. And again, this is kind of situational for him too, because he rides a motorcycle. He's prone to those kind of injuries. So like, having a little kit where you can suture yourself up and stuff like that. Like he's the type of person that should be carrying kit like that because, he can save somebody's life on the side of the freeway too. And, there's more people like that out there than you realize. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So
yeah, so think about that too. Sometimes your trauma kit is not necessarily going to be for you. There's a couple of channels I watch on YouTube, and he carries a trauma kit in his ankle every day, and he's never used it for himself, but he's used it 2 or 3 times, rolling up to like just driving past a car accident. He jumps out because he's a good Samaritan guy. Everybody okay? Busts out his tourniquet off of his ankle and saves people's lives. Like, it may not just be for you, some of the stuff that we carry, if you're that type of guy or so inclined to stop and help somebody in an accident, which is me. And my girlfriend rolls her eyes and looks at me every time, like, why are we stopping? Because we're going to stop. But, it's not always for you.
Yep. I even think it's a good idea. Like when I was in LVN, I always had like a mask to give people CPR because I didn't want to put my lips on people's mouths. That was purely in case somebody needed some help and I needed to do mouth to mouth. This way, if you have those hesitations or those fears, then overcome it with, the right gear, a one-way rebreather like that. And, you don't catch what they have, but you still give them the help they need. Those sorts of things. So very, very, very cool. Yeah, I like the medical stuff. Having knowledge in that. Even Band-Aids matter, guys. Even Band-Aids matter.
For sure. And in my backpack, like in my laptop bag, I have like a small first aid kit. A lot of people call it like a boo-boo kit. So there's some band-aids and there's some alcohol wipes and just like basic stuff. Nothing hardcore, but just basic stuff. And that travels with me every time I grab my backpack and my laptop. That's with me on the planes and wherever. And there's a schmog in there and, just a few basic things. Nothing hardcore because I'm not like that guy. I need to up my knowledge before I start carrying a lot of tools that I don't necessarily know how to use yet.
Yeah, and we're knife guys, so we're gonna be like cutting ourselves. It's always good to have a band-aid.
I may or may not have cut myself before.
By the way, this thing is pretty cool. This is the new Raiden. Well, I guess it's not new because I think this run of this knife is already over. I think he's like 2 models past this, but it's new to me. It's pretty cool.
Edgy. That is, I saw your unboxing and your video on that earlier today, which is great. And I thought it was very cool. So I can't wait till I get to check it out at some point.
Yeah.
Edgy American says, if you attempt CPR and they die anyway, be prepared for the mental stress of that. He was not, and it was a stranger. So yeah, I don't think you can mentally prepare for that, but you can try.
The way to prepare yourself for that is knowing your stuff, knowing your skills when it comes to the medical field. Like when I did a lot of my nursing skills, like even like from things like giving a dude a Foley catheter, which is a very uncomfortable thing for a man to do to another man.
Yep.
But it's part of my job, right? Like when you develop like the confidence in executing the skill, then at that point, like even if you don't succeed, you don't feel as bad sometimes because you understand like what you did the best you could, right? Like you understand what the realistic expectations of performing this act, but that's going to increase the amount of survival for somebody, right? And the worst thing with CPR is usually breaking ribs. People break ribs all the time doing CPR. That's one of the major things. So knowing where to do it on different people, including children, that's very different, by the way. I think is an important skill. And as a matter of fact, I think everybody should send, if you have kids, especially, it's important. Both parents go get a CPR class at least once, just to know what it is. So you're familiar with it. So when the stuff does happen, you're like, well, I don't know. I'm just going to put my hands here, and you might do more damage to somebody than good, which you don't want to do. So
yeah, I think that goes back to, your knowledge. Like if you feel confident that you are qualified, for lack, better words, to do CPR and you feel comfortable doing it, then do it. If you went to class, but you don't feel comfortable doing it, it's okay to not do it. Like you don't have to do stuff that you don't feel comfortable doing. If you don't want to stop for the car accident, then don't stop. Like call 911 as you drive past, things like that. Don't just be a jerk. But if you're not comfortable and you don't feel like you're qualified to do
you're like,
something,
I'm late to work.
then don't do it, right? And CPM is like, oh my gosh, Alex has a Raiden. Dude, Alex has everything. Like people get like I'm jealous of Alex. He's got all.
I just got this one. I just got this thing. It's pretty cool. I think it's good looking.
He got everything. So
no, I do not have everything.
He's got something.
Do be shocked. But
yeah, Alex has all the cool stuff, man.
Yeah, this thing is cool. I purely bought this thing, like I said in the video, because of the way it looks. I like the way it looks. It's all the contouring on the handle and everything. It looks cool. And then another thing was cool too is the knurling is pretty cool on the pivot. I don't think you're going to catch that very well.
No, but I saw it in your video, so it looked good. And Doom, no, I knew you were in the military, but I did not know your MOS and what you did. So We'll talk more about that, but yeah, very cool. My nephew was in the Army for 8 years, was in Afghanistan, was in Iraq, um, scout sniper dude. And yeah, so he came back all safe and sound. A little bit, not up there, but yeah, he's doing good. But yeah, so I, I don't know. I think it's a lot. I think it all boils down to knowledge and having the right stuff that you're comfortable using. What's Professor
Yep.
said? You can prepare for these scenarios in different ways. When you practice in a simulator, you are training the brain and muscles which don't fully distinguish reality. Yeah, a lot of it is just mental reps, right? Like you go to the gym and you do, 10 reps. We got to do mental reps. And you think about these scenarios that are super far fetched and super out there. Or wait, is that only me? Okay, whatever. But if you think about it and you do a mental rep, you at least have an idea what to do in your mind if something happens. Does that make any sense? I hope so.
It does. I think it's a combination of muscle memory and a combination of building the confidence to execute something. Because there is a lot of cases where people have less confidence than they do of skill. And that also needs to be understood, like where you're at.
Yep.
You know.
Steven says he had to do CPR on his mom. Yeah. That stuff affects you. And just know that it's going to affect you. And I read a good book years ago on the aftermath of a self-defense shooting, right? That's the stuff that nobody ever talks about. I mean, they talk about it more now, but when I read this book years ago, nobody ever really talked about that. And he walked you through mentally what you're going to think, the whole legal process that's going to happen and all of this stuff. And it was super interesting to me. It's one of my favorite books to kind of learn about the process after a self-defense shooting, which kind of just goes back to this. Like you can't prepare yourself for things, but talking to other people that have done CPR on people, in real world situations, they can tell you what it's like. And then you kind of understand, but you never really understand until you're there. But I think that mental rep, that talking to people like Doom, who has been a combat medic, he probably got a bunch of stories that, he wants to talk about. Some he probably doesn't want to talk about. But things like that could be good knowledge base to get you to where you need to be, I guess. I don't know.
Yep, absolutely. Knowledge is key, and the more you know, the less you need. That's another big. That's a very cliche saying in the survival world, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just kind of looking at some of these comments real quick to see if we catch it. We're never going to catch all the comments, guys. We do try, but I don't want to spend.
I just see Doom talking about selling a kidney for a knife, and
yeah,
I
so we do get some weird stuff, but
yeah.
like we're not going to catch every comment, so I apologize. But we do try to get most of them. And I'm not going to spend the first 20 minutes saying hi to every single person that joins the chat either. So that,
Right.
sorry, that's just not going to be us. So yeah, Doom says here, CPR has an extremely low success rate unless you have an AED on site. Talk to your employers if they do not have AEDs on site, which is your defibrillators. And yeah, at my old company, we had them in every building, on every floor, in strategic locations, very much like fire extinguishers. I mean, the AEDs now are kind of like today's fire extinguishers. Wherever there's a fire extinguisher, I think is where we pretty much put AEDs. So yeah, definitely something to train with. Yep. A lot of times companies bring in...
put the 2 leads on the nipples, man. That's all you need to do.
In Australia, AEDs are mandatory at every workplace, which is great. I don't think they're mandatory here. I think most companies are putting them in that I have seen. I don't think they're a mandatory thing. But yeah, I've gone through training. A lot of times companies bring in like first aid or Red Cross to do CPR and AED training. So I've been through all of that stuff before, which is fun, interesting, and good to do.
Absolutely. I got a
Alex, did you
question.
buy anything yet? Like anything this year or anything during this live stream? Are you asking?
This is 2023 purchase, right? So that's the first purchase of 2023.
And is that the
And
first and
then
only purchase?
no, I got a slip joint from Surge, one of the longer ones I don't have yet. And
Okay.
then I got a another PM2, but the Emerson Wave, the final blade shape.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna do one more mod series with that one.
All right. Well, I have bought 2 knives in 2023. So I think my knife budget for 2023 is already spent. And that was on like, I mean, what are we, the 15th today? And I think I bought them like about a week ago. So yeah, 10 days in ish, 7 days in, I blew my budget.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
I have not bought anything on this live stream. So I think I'm good.
I do have a War Pig coming from Ed, Red Horse Knife Works. And
Nice.
then you're sending my Ronin over there to get fixed.
Okay.
And then what else? A Scout build gonna start in February, maybe.
Okay.
Well, it's gonna start, but I think it's in February. And then I think I have one more custom knife from Lodato that I'm working on, but I don't know. He says it's almost done, and 6 months later, it's almost done.
All right. So I will probably buy some more this year. Ed at Red Horse Knife Works, we're still kind of going through the last custom Hellraiser that he's going to do, that he's going to build for me at some point. Hopefully that'll come later in 2023. He's finishing up another, and he's really focused on the chef knife line right now. So whenever that comes, it comes. I have been talking to Todd Fisher Sr. about a small Archangel, mini Archangel, a 3.5-inch Archangel.
That's the size I like. I
That
like that one.
might happen this year. I told him, like in December we were talking, and I told him we'd get together after the first of the year. Haven't really reached out yet. I'm just kind of seeing where it goes. But yeah, I might have something from that. So maybe just those two, that Archangel and the Red Horse Knifework Hellraiser, plus the 2 that I already bought.
Actually, you reminded me. Then also, I think this year is the year that I'm buying the custom Hellraiser from you, right?
Yeah, it's over here. It's ready. Like, yeah, we can talk about that. It's just,
So
you got my
then that's
PayPal.
on
Let's
the
go.
list.
Yeah, that one's ready to sell. Whenever you're ready, we can make that happen.
So that one's gonna come to me, and then there's gonna be and then the knife that I'm buying from Jim Moore.
Oh yes, I saw that.
Sharp by
Yes.
Design, yes.
Yeah, so there's going to be a few knives for me this year on top of what I already bought. And then watches, there's a couple, but they're like heavy hitters. So I don't know, I'm not sure where
I'm
I'm going
gonna
to go.
slim down and buy nicer stuff this year. And like I kind of like got myself involved in like every aspect of it, like
Yep.
couple like fancier ones and some high precision core, and then this kind of automatic, that kind of automatic, making, so this year is gonna be just getting up maybe a couple, like maybe 1 or 2 nice ones is what I think I'm gonna do this year with watches.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a couple of Rolex I'm looking at. The availability is a whole different thing. But um, there's a couple of Omegas, maybe. It wouldn't be all of them. It would be, like a Rolex and Omega. Like, I don't know. I also was just told by a friend that he wants me to come to Michigan for his 40th birthday in 2024. So I may just save my Rolex purchase until then. And then the group of us go and all buy Rolex at the same event. That might be a thing to do. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, Will Carey picked up Microtech Desert Warrior. Woo!
Oh man, more of those.
Aussie Mike bought 2 NJT Zirkutai and Mokume coins. Ooh, that sounds cool. Bearded Doom is going to sell some nicer knives to afford more space knives.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've been seeing people make like those coins and stuff. I saw Surge made some with like gold nuggets and silver nuggets on them and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of melted like an old like 1930s silver dollar. It's pretty cool.
So Professor EDC says this year I'm going to focus on a couple of customs and waiting for Dirk on another, and of course the JWK. Yeah, I know people always like, but so that's a good thing. So Professor EDC really likes the Shark Nivco Ryu that I have, that I'm not ready to sell yet, but I have been in that position. So like this Frank Fisher Fury that I just picked up from NAV, he lent me to film almost a year ago. And I told him a year ago that if he ever went to sell it, I wanted it. And it took a year. Now that's happened to me with several knives. It's been a year or so until the person was ready to sell. So you never know what might happen.
Well, I told you I wanted that Hellraiser like over a year ago.
Yeah, about the time I got it, that's the one I lent you to film. And yeah, now I'm ready to let it go because quite frankly, I've got to afford some of the stuff I've already bought. Like, it's just, it's that kind of a thing. But Nick says, have you guys seen the new Microtech bar lock coming soon? I have not. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm assuming it's maybe like an axis lock looking thing.
I'm going to guess so.
That's usually what a bar lock is. I have not. Interesting, though.
Did I hear Wilson, my watch buddy? Did I hear Rolex? Yes. As you know, in our small group chat that has been blowing up, I've noticed over here that I haven't looked at, and I will get to it and comment on all of those, whatever you guys are talking about in the background when we're done here. But yeah, there's a couple of Rolex that I like. So, yeah, we never know what might happen. I think we'll wait until Detroit's birthday and we'll just all buy Rolexes next year.
One day.
NAF's throwing down the gauntlet, Professor. Well, I think we covered most everything.
Yeah, I think we did.
I mean, there's a lot to cover in this whole vehicle kit that we could spend another 2 hours talking about probably.
Oh,
but we're not going to do that.
Nope.
But I don't know. What do you guys think? Should we do some videos on that coming up and put together a kit? I think that's where I'm leaning. I think I just need to kind of really be realistic to myself to put together a realistic kit for me and my situation. And that's all I can really talk about. But, and then maybe Alex can do a video on what he actually has because he's got stuff in his car already.
And I have an abundance of gear that I always wanted to try out, like stuff that, like those Exacto Tech, like lighters and things. I like 3 variations of those. I have all kinds of stuff. So I almost thought I could do like a little side project with the channel to do some of those survival gears and just test them out, see how they do.
I think you should do that. I think I'll do 1 or 2, maybe a couple of videos on, hey, here's this stuff. And, kind of maybe break it down into categories, here's the knife stuff or, a couple things so that it's a couple of different videos. Because I think one video would just end up being rambly and too long to do.
I probably have enough crap to do like 50 videos. Easy.
Hollywood Tactical says he loves videos on survival gear. All right. Well,
I guess I'll have to do some of those.
I think that's something that'll come in the coming months from Alex's on his main channel and mine. So if you're not, I'm sure everybody that is subscribed to or watching in this channel is subscribe to our main channels. But if you're not, please go do that. But if you're not going to watch anything, don't subscribe. Honestly, the subscription numbers don't mean anything if you don't watch the videos. You don't have to watch everything, but like, yeah, just if you're going to subscribe to something, then at least watch some of them. Don't just subscribe just to subscribe. I don't know. That's
you can subscribe to just subscribe, whatever.
Nah, because I don't want the subscription numbers to go up and no views to go. Like,
and then they go down.
Then they go down. It's like this vicious cycle. I don't know. That's a whole topic for a different EDC hour. We could talk about the whole YouTube phenomenon.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, get back to work. Thanks, man.
Bye, Mike. Good to see you, buddy.
At Beard of Doom, yeah, about 85% of his views come from non-subscribers. I think I'm in about the 76% come from non-subscribers, something like that. I have to look again. But yeah, which is just weird to me. I don't know. That's a weird statistic to me.
Yeah, that's another video.
I don't get hung up on it, but it's just odd to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that covers it, guys. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you all.
Absolutely. I do too. And we're going to do a guest one next time, right?
Great conversations. Yeah, I think we typically try to do just us and then a guest, and then just us and then a guest. But we're not really opposed to having guests more often. Sometimes we're just a little bit late in the game on scheduling somebody, but we have a lot of ideas and people that we've talked to or we want to have on and things like that. So, yeah, we'll come up with a good guest for a couple of weeks from now.
Yep. Sounds like a plan.
Cool. Thanks, guys. We appreciate all of you, and have a great rest of your night. And I think for a lot of people, tomorrow is a holiday. So enjoy your holiday. It is not a holiday for me, but and yeah, Beard of Doom, we'll have you on for sure. That would be a blast. But we're not allowed to talk about lanyards or doodads. So you got to come up with something.
You could definitely bring the wiener, though. The titanium wiener is always welcome.
Bring the wiener, and we'll talk about that, but no doodads.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great night.
Wait. And he can't film in the shower while he's doing it.
Yeah, you can't be in the shower. You can't wear your unitard. Like, we're going to have some rules.
Yeah, because I've seen some of your videos, There's some stuff going on there. There's a big stuffed monkey with a motorcycle. There's a lot of shenanigans going on over there.
Tactical, yes. It's a national holiday, but not everybody's off. Yes, it is a holiday tomorrow.
Dealerships are not off tomorrow.
But it's not a holiday for me. I have to work. So, yes, it's a holiday for everybody. Some of you are off. Some of you are not. That was more my point. All right. Yeah. On that note, we're out.